Now that Cam Akers is out for the year, let's take a look at the running back landscape in the second round and talk about where players are moving around. Who's being vaulted up too high? Who still looks like a good value even with a bump in ADP? Make no mistake about it, Cam Akers going down affects every running back. Every name you see on this list, Gibson, Clyde, Harris, Mixon, every one of them goes up not just one draft slot, multiple draft slots because the running back position got more scarce the moment Akers went down. You got Mike Thomas ripped from the top 36. There's a lot of cascading effects that happen when players go down, especially Akers in a lot of people's, not mine, but a lot of people's top 10 overall. I was counting on Akers going in the top 10 so I could get one of these guys, Gibson, Clyde, or Harris later. But the scarcity of the position mixed with a big name going down is going to have a lot of people reaching on Harris, Gibson, Clyde, J.K. Dobbins, who I need to add here even though he falls into round 3 a little bit. He's like that borderline guy. He's the guy in the third round. He was going at 3.5. Now he's getting pulled half the time into the second round. We need to add him to the list. Let's break down all of these running backs and more. The Fantasy Football Show begins now.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show. Smitty. Take a lap. To my left, I have the second round, or a little bit of the first round, a little bit of the third round. I've got the second round sitting right there, and we're looking at running backs. We're looking at the blue names on the list, nothing else. We're not talking wide receivers. We're not talking quarterbacks. We're not talking tight ends. We're talking running backs only. The running back landscape in the second round due to the Cam Akers injury. And the guy that I've highlighted first, Gibby, my favorite, probably my favorite second round running back in 2021. Now, unfortunately, the Cam Akers injury is pushing him up higher and higher. I released content a couple weeks ago saying that I actually like Gibby quietly at 13, 14, 15 overall, which was early pre-Cam Akers going down. When I got the 11 pick and I felt in a bind to go running back, a lot of you saw it on the mock draft videos that I've been doing. I'd take Diggs and Gibson. I'd take Diggs at 11. I'd take Gibby at 13. I'd take Josh Allen in round 4 because my favorite stack in 2021, maybe my favorite stack ever, is Diggs and Allen. Diggs and Allen will win you leagues in 2021. But I love Diggs and then Gibson. And now with Akers going down, you can get Gibson pretty much 8 times out of 10 by 13. No one's going to get crazy unless you're in some weird league and your Uncle Bud is, comes out scratching his belly from the restroom and goes, I'm taking Gibson at 1.7. Happens every year in one of your leagues, so don't be shocked. That's why I don't say 10 out of 10. But 8 times out of 10, Gibby will be there at pick 12, 13, 14, right? So don't force running back at 11. I don't like Chubb at 11. I've made it no secret that I don't draft Chubb at number 11. I'll take Diggs. I'll take Adams. Adams was falling to round 2 on the regular just weeks ago, days ago, technically hours ago. Laughable material right there. Welcome back to the first round, Devontae Adams. I take Adams. I take Diggs at 11, Tyreek Hill, whoever you want. Insert the wide receiver you like. Maybe you don't like Diggs. I love Diggs. Diggs is my number 1 wide receiver in 2021. And I'm not afraid to draft him as the number 1 wide receiver either. I'll take him at 11. No question about it. My point is I love Gibson to pair with him. I love going Gibson instead of Chubb in round 1 and wide receiver in round 2. I like going Diggs and Gibby. Gibby's probably in for a 1,400 plus total yard season. 12 to 15 TDs potentially. Let's see how he evolves as a wide receiver. I think he could get Alvin Kamara type numbers. I would be shocked if Gibson wasn't at least getting to that level. If he doesn't get there by the end of the year, he'll be scratching at the surface of where Alvin Kamara lives, and he'll be producing similar numbers to Alvin Kamara if he stays healthy. We are worried a little bit about the toe. He came out weeks ago and said, the toe's still bothering him. The toe injury, the turf toe injury that bothered him last year, was it him just talking about, hey, my injury was so bad last year, it's still bothering me now? Like, was it said like that? He did follow up by saying he can make all the cuts that he can normally make, but it doesn't sound like it's a hindrance or that it's a big worry. Once we know or hear he has some limitations involved, then we got to freak out a little bit maybe. But Gibby at 13, 14, 15, love it. It sucks you can't get him at 15, 16, 17, 18 any longer. That's what I'm talking about here today. Akers getting removed from the top 10, which was a gift to all of us that were drafting after Akers. We were counting on people taking Akers at 10 and bumping everybody down. Gibby's not going at 15, 16, 17, 18 anymore on the regular. Gibby is now going to live and reside in 13 to 15 overall type value. Some people might even take him higher. We'll find out. The ADP data hasn't really come full circle since the Akers injury, so people are making too many assumptions right now about ADP and where you're going to for sure find people are making a grave mistake. ADP is going to be kind of crazy for the next couple weeks anyway. The guy that gets affected most is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because Clydey boy was falling to 3.1 to 3.5 on the regular. This Akers injury moves Clyde from 3.1 to 3.5 right into like 2.6 to 2.10. He no longer even flirts with the third round. Clyde is a second round pick now. And that sucks because Clyde had so much less risk. I'm not saying I don't take him. I'm not saying he's not worth the risk, but he had so much less risk as a third drafted player than he does a second drafted player. Now, who falls to you in the third round now? This could be relative. Like if you're taking Clyde in the third round, you're taking DK in the second, and now Clyde's going into the second round, and DK or Ridley or AJ Brown or Jefferson fall into the third round. It could be a wash. It could be irrelevant when push comes to shove. So know that. It's not like a devastating type of thing. And if you walk out with Clyde in the second round and Jefferson in round 3 versus walking out with DK and Clyde, same thing. So don't freak out too much, but I am here to tell you, Clyde had a lot less risk in the third round than he does in the second round, but I still love him. Like Gibson, Clyde has top 5 to 10 overall potential at the running back position. I don't care what any of you say about, oh, he won't get goal line work. How do you know? Because he failed during bad play calling where he got clobbered behind the line of scrimmage by multiple players in a row on bad play calls for Clyde. You've talked to Andy Reid. Andy Reid said, yeah, I agree. No more goal line for Clyde. The assumptions people make without even knowing anything is head scratching to me. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has goal line potential if you use him correctly. And the Chiefs have a much upgraded offensive line and a drive and desire to balance out the offense now that they've got their offensive line on point. It's retooled. They want to keep Mahomes upright. Everybody assuming KC no longer wants to run, as if Andy Reid doesn't still have a desire for a balanced attack. It's crazy talk. It's the same thing that drove people into 2020 doubting Aaron Rodgers because there were injuries and deficiencies in the Green Bay offense because they lost Devontae Adams in 2019 for a string of games. Remember when Adams missed a chunk of time, came back, and was still not right? The Packers had to run the ball like crazy. They fed Aaron Jones on the ground. They didn't pass the same. People walked into 2020 doubting Aaron Rodgers at 7, 8, 9 round value because they said the Packers no longer pass the football. They run now. They run through Aaron Jones. No more passing for Aaron Rodgers. He won't ever be the same again. Assumptions being made because of a makeshift situation where you had to adapt to Adams being out and A-Rod having no weapons anymore in terms of passing the football. Same thing with Clyde. The offensive line struggles. They can't run. They couldn't run much at all. They abandoned the run a lot of the time. They threw the football. But Andy Reid has a long history of producing elite running back production. So if you're going to draw a conclusion on Clyde and assume Clyde can't be a top 5 running back because you think the KC Chiefs are going to pass the ball only, you're not looking at the longer history of Reid, the longer history of everything that goes on in KC and the kind of running backs they produce from a fantasy football perspective. Clyde's going to be fine, not to mention you're baking in, or you were, baked in, boys, third drafted player value into all that upside. Clyde could fall on his face and probably earn you third round value pretty easily as long as he stayed relatively healthy.
Baked in, boys!
Now you got a little more risk at second round value, but again, it might wash completely based on the running backs getting pulled up, pushing those wide receivers down. AJ Brown, Jefferson, DK, Ridley. Now you have more of a shot than you did prior to the Cam Akers injury of getting one of those wide receivers to fall into the third round that shouldn't. I think it'll be okay, push come to shove. Clyde gets moved up the most out of all these running backs here, maybe Mixon too, but I don't think it'll affect anything if the flow of draft kind of leans in your favor. Clyde is well worth second round value. He's a top 5 to 10 running back. He had extremely low risk, ultra high reward value in the third round. Now he has probably not even medium risk. It's not low. It's like more toward medium risk, but still kind of low.
Baked in, boys!
But again, ultra high upside. His upside doesn't change. Harris probably moves up a couple overall draft slots, but at least one running back draft slot, obviously. But I don't know that he's going to climb into round 1, but he could go from like 18, 17, 16, 15 overall on kind of the regular, depending on the format, depending on who you draft with, depending on what part of the country you're in. You're in Pittsburgh, he goes at 12. But I think he does climb a couple draft slots. You probably do have to draft him around 13, 14 overall, maybe 15 in redraft. In Dynasty, he's a first rounder, but we're talking redraft. And I think he's still a darn good second drafted player. J.K. Dobbins, as I alluded to earlier, kind of is the one running back that's still lingering into the third round on this list, but will go in round 2 as well. It kind of sucks because he had locked in third round value, like mid third round value, and kind of like he occasionally is going to climb into round 2. He was occasionally falling into the top of round 4. Before you say no, J.K. Dobbins doesn't fall to round 4, everyone's league is different. Believe me when I tell you through my HeySmitty.com text service, which you can order at HeySmitty.com, one-on-one advice. I can't tell you how many times I get a J.K. Dobbins is available. I'm on the clock at 4.4, Smitty. Do I take him? I hear it all the time. I've also heard somebody say I'm at 2.12. All the running backs are gone. Do I take J.K. Dobbins? So don't tell me that your league's the center of the universe, man. Your league isn't the sun, and everybody revolves around your league, Bob from accounting. I love J.K. Dobbins. I don't like that he's climbing. He has more risk as a second drafted player than he does a third drafted player by quite a bit. He's got Kenyon Drake potential bust. I smell it. I can admit it. But he's also got Jonathan Taylor, who's getting drafted at like 5 to 8 overall. He's got that kind of appeal in 2021. I know people say, oh, Lamar's going to vulture, or they have Gus the Bus. How is he going to get the volume? They run so much in Baltimore. I don't worry about it. I know talent's going to win out. And assuming he stays healthy, JK's going to get fed plenty and he'll pop off and be efficient. Double-digit touchdown production. I think he'll have 1,000 yards rushing, maybe 1,100, 1,200. He could have anywhere in that range. Wouldn't shock me if it was 900 and a bunch more receiving yards than we expected. Or maybe he doesn't catch the ball a lot. A lot of people assume that. I think it's somewhere in between. I think he has like 1,100 rushing yards. I think he has double-digit touchdowns, and they use him more in the passing game than anybody expected. And he's ultra efficient. At third-round value, that feels like a player that has a lot of baked in risk to me. It kind of depends, like with Clyde, if you're getting DK or AJ Brown or Ridley or Jefferson now down in 3 when you wouldn't have, and you have to take JK at 2.11. So you got JK then DK versus DK then JK. Who cares? So context matters where you draft Dobbins. I don't love him at 14. Everything is about ADP and that line in the sand. The line in the sand for J.K. Dobbins, where he's like high risk, flips into very low risk, high reward, is around 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, all the way to like 3.5. That's about where you're going to find him occasionally falling. And if he does, scoop him up. If you don't like the other options or you don't want to go wide receiver, I'm plenty fine going DK and Justin Jefferson. Should he fall? DK, Lamb. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Lamb over JK. I definitely take Justin Jefferson over JK. But I love JK when all those guys are off the board. If we look at this ADP, if we're talking about Chris Carson, Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, those guys, I'm taking JK over those guys in a heartbeat. If AJ Brown's there, Justin Jefferson. Metcalf, Ridley, Clyde, of course I'm taking those guys over JK. Context matters, don't get crazy on me. Mixon, I'm avoiding at all costs because he is a second round staple. The injury to Akers has vaulted him into a cemented in second round ADP. You can tell me you love him all you want. You can talk about Cincinnati turning things around. I've been doing that all offseason. They will turn things around. They will stretch the field. They will give Mixon more room to run. He will see less 8-man fronts. Well, Smitty, well, you just kind of answered my question, and now I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to show you. You just said Cincy's going to be great. Why do you hate Mixon? Mixon's failed you 2 years in a row, and before you tell me that's hogwash, because in 2019, Smitty, he was a top 10, 11, 12 running back, depending on your scoring. Who cares when you don't show up for the first half of the season? Through my text advice, through my email advice from heysmitty.com, learn about it. Through this service, I can't tell you how many people DM'd me, emailed me, called me, and said, Smitty, I don't know what to do. I'm 1-7. Mixon buried me. My season's over. I've got to win out in order to do well. Should I trade Mixon away for a ham sandwich? It doesn't matter. Unless you traded for Mixon mid-season, you probably got burned. That's a bust in my opinion. 2 years in a row, Mixon's failed you. I don't mind taking the gamble on the situation being the problem, and maybe he stays healthy. Maybe he's not overworked at this point. Throw him out there as a third drafted player, but you're not going to get him in the third round. You're now going to have to pay round 2 value. And if you want to take anything from what I'm saying with Mixon, don't take it like I hate Mixon or I wouldn't draft Mixon. Take it like this. There are just way too many players all around Mixon's ADP that I just like better. He's at 2.6 right here. I like Hopkins, Gibson, Harris above him. Of course, I like Clyde, Ridley, Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, even J.K. Dobbins. That is too many names to list off to be comfortable ever taking Joe Mixon. It's all about who's available. It's all about liking other players better. It's not about me hating Joe Mixon, so get off that and start realizing it's context. Ekeler, same thing. I like Ekeler a lot, but I'm not drafting him in round 1. His ADP is looking like 1.10. He kind of replaced where Cam Akers was. I don't like that. I like him as a second drafted player. I think he's got a ton of upside. You know how much I love Herbert. Herbert is the GOAT.
He will punch you in the throat.
In 2021, Keenan Allen's going to go nuts. Ekeler's got to stay healthy. And in order to bake in the risk that Ekeler does stay healthy, you got to take him in round 2 as your second drafted player, not your first drafted player. That's my only restriction with Ekeler. I do like him, but you got to take him in the right place. Same thing with Aaron Jones. I don't hate him. You don't see a red X next to Ekeler or Aaron Jones. The only thing I'm telling you is draft him with caution. Take him in the second round. I would definitely take Harris. I would definitely take Gibson over Ekeler and Jones. I'd probably take a couple, if not all of these top wide receivers like DK, Ridley, Justin Jefferson over Ekeler and Jones. That makes it so I probably won't own either running back in 2021. The caution icon next to him means I'm drafting them very, very delicately. That usually means I will miss out on owning them because other people are taking them too high. Hence the caution in general. And I'm fine with it. I'm fine with going with the safer options over on this side here that are the names DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, Harris, Gibson, Clyde, and I don't mind these guys. I'm just not taking them at their ADP. Get a free phone call from me. I'll call you right now. Don't test me. I'll do it. I'll call you right now. Send me a screenshot of you making a $10 deposit or more at Underdog Fantasy by going to Smitty1.com. As soon as you get to Smitty1.com, a banner, this banner right here, will pop up. Click it. Use promo code Smitty. It should fill the promo code in for you by clicking on that banner on Smitty1.com and play DFS the right way using Underdog Fantasy. I will call you up. You'll get $25 in bonus cash if you're new to Underdog. It's a win-win-win. So get on over there and have me call you ASAP. And order my one-on-one text device at heysmitty.com. I'll text you right now. Later.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty!